En Garde! No, I'm not challenging you to a duel. This is in fact the name of the game we're reviewing today. En Garde. English translation, En Garde. Hey, don't get fenced in by the gaming echo chamber. Head on over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to unlock access to the greatest indie gaming community in all of the Discord lands. Get exclusive live streams, ad-free early versions of shows, and more. Alright, time to raise your sword as we embark on this sharp-looking title. En Garde is certainly a unique swordplay-focused indie adventure with some light platforming, which puts you in control of Adelia de Volador, the swashbuckling hero of our 4 to 5 hour campaign. Think of Adelia as a female Zorro of sorts. She's a smooth talker, quick on her feet, good with a sword, and agile as all hell. Story's not a huge emphasis in En Garde. It is a simple tale of taking down the crooked Count Duke and being the hero. However, it's the fun and surprisingly deep combat engine that's the star of this show. The game is broken up into 4 episodes. Each episode runs about 40 minutes to an hour. Levels consist of platforming sections, table sliding, rope swinging, ledge climbing, and switch throwing. Hey, put down that Nintendo Switch, don't throw it, it didn't do anything wrong to you, did it? You're not gonna find much in the way of puzzles, though the levels do host a few secrets for players to discover should they wander off the fairly linear paths. There are optional challenges available for those that seek them out, and fear not, you can always go back to completed levels if you missed anything, including some cool secrets as well. At its core, En Garde is all about getting from one sword fight to the next until you reach a boss, so if you don't end up enjoying the combat in this game, or if you're not that great at parrying, there won't be that much here for you, unfortunately. Thankfully, that combat is quite entertaining. Things start out simple enough with a basic attack and parry system, but it won't be long till you're performing zany acrobatics, kicking enemies in the water, bashing them with environmental traps, and even blasting them with cannons. If you couldn't tell, En Garde has a great sense of physical humor. It's also no slouch in the difficulty department. Timing parries can be tricky, striking at the right moment is paramount to your success, and using your environment is also crucial when dealing with large groups of foes. These enemies will gang up on you quick and dish out some serious damage if you aren't fast on your feet. There's way more than meets the eye here, but for a short game, it does a good job of introducing new combat mechanics. Critical strikes, surprise attacks, kicking enemies, perfect parries. It's clear a ton of effort went into designing a very robust system, which left me impressed. While challenging, combat feels pretty smooth, especially if you have the rig to play it at higher frame rates. 30 FPS or lower really wouldn't be ideal here, to be honest, as timing is such a critical factor to your success. Thankfully on my 4070 I was able to get my frame rate up around the hundreds at 1440p resolution with the ultra settings. Performance will of course vary depending on your rig, but my advice would be to play this game at as high of a frame rate as you possibly can, even if it means taking a bit of a graphical hit. While I mostly had a good time finding new ways to take out foes, later in the game En Garde introduces a system where enemies have additional defense which can only be broken down by doing precise counter moves. So for example, if the enemy's attack calls for a parry, and then another parry followed by a roll, you'll need to perform those actions perfectly or the enemy's defense will recharge. This was pretty frustrating, especially on boss encounters or in groups of enemies where you're being attacked from multiple angles, but that said, En Garde offers a slew of accessibility options and even some difficulties to choose from. Hell, you can actually turn on invincibility mode if you're really struggling. You do unlock a few special moves along the way as well. I thought these could have been a little bit cooler than they actually are, but they do dish out some pretty good damage and help you. Overall, small gripes and difficulty spikes aside, En Garde's combat feels pretty great at times, and the platforming, while kind of an afterthought, it serves the purpose. There's also an arena mode that can be unlocked. Here you'll take down waves of enemies in randomized encounters. With a few difficulties and modifiers to unlock, this mode was a little bit more fun than I was expecting it to be. It offers up an enjoyable playground to mess around in, definitely adds a few additional hours of gameplay. And as for the visuals in En Garde, they are very colorful, full of a lot of personality, and mostly well done. Again, I was able to play on ultra settings, so your mileage may vary there, but I was impressed with the lighting effects along with the fluid animations. I don't think it's an amazing looking game, but the cartoon style serves this title quite well. And there's other nice little effects like smoke kicking up when you smash barrels as one example. That adds a lot of charm too. Voice acting is surprisingly well done here with a soundtrack that sounds straight out of a Zorro episode. Plenty of orchestration, including horns. I really enjoyed all of the compositions and thought they worked well. En Garde ends up standing out as something different in the indie gaming scene, and we love that combat here at I Dream of Indie Games. The combat has its frustrations, but it can be a ton of fun if you get into a rhythm with it. But also, the game is really pretty linear. There are some secrets to find, but more or less you're following a pretty straight path, so there's not a lot of variety here, no puzzles or anything like that. I also think that could have helped this game. The story, like I mentioned, is not a huge factor, but what's here is carried by some really great voice performances. There are some memos scattered across the world, but I honestly didn't care enough to really pay much attention to them. But I guess in the end, if you're thirsting for something a little bit different and have been waiting for a decent Zorro game, then En Garde might scratch that itch. Thank you so much for watching our latest review. You know what else might scratch an itch? Heading on over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames. We have a ton of perks for you, including Discord access to the greatest indie gaming community there is, ad-free early versions of shows, and hell, even some free games depending on the tier. Bring a voice to the voiceless today. I'll see you in the next video.